In this video, I'm going to be showing you the top money saving tips for your monthly food and toiletries shop. With the average UK shopper making 221 visits to the supermarket each year, it's essential to know how to save and, more importantly, resist the ever enticing marketing machines known as supermarkets. Did you know we millennials spend on average £338 a year more on our food shop than our parents? A lot of this can be accounted for by our most favoured items being avocados, hummus and cal. In actual fact, the older generations are often complaining that millennials lust fancy products. Let's just take a look at this rather entertaining comment from an older generation on a recent post about millennials not even knowing the cost of a pint of milk. We used to take sandwiches to work with us and make our coffee at work. Now the trend is to not bother. Buy a coffee on the way to work, nip out and buy sandwiches or trays of food at lunchtime and eat out as much as humanly possible. Then they complain they cannot afford a deposit for a house. They blame baby boomers for having it all too easy. No, we got out of bed early and made our own sandwiches for work. We bought milk and coffee at the weekend to take on work on Monday so that we would make our drinks at work. Wake up and smell the coffee that you could have made yourselves for once. So off the back of this, I thought I would do a bit of a millennial quiz. How much does a current pint of milk cost from Sainsbury's? Is it A, 55p, B, 75p, C, 90p, or D, £1.10? Let's prove this older generation individual wrong. Do we millennials know the cost of a pint of milk? Well, we're about to find out. If you'd have gone for A, 55p, congratulations, you've won the £1 million question on Who Wants to Be a Millennialaire. Welcome back to Study Wealth and the How to Save series. Mitchell here, documenting our journey to success. If you haven't already, I'd recommend watching episode 1 on your housing expenses and episode 2 on your living expenses. Don't forget, the monthly food and toiletries shop is still part of the 50% needs category, and it should take up no more than 10 to 15% of that monthly budget. Now, we all know that supermarkets are carefully designed marketing machines with specific smells to make you feel hungry when you walk into the store, certain layouts to ensure that you walk around the entire store and pick up those impulse buys, and finally making sure that the most profitable items are in your eye line. This makes it really important to understand how supermarkets work, understand how to save and resist. Now, it's true to say that in this category, work lunches are often forgotten, and it's an incredibly large expense. Make sure you stay around for the last few tips to look at how we can save almost £2,000 on our yearly work lunches. It's an incredible saving, but do you have what it takes to get there? Food shop tip number 1 is to take control. It's important you have an allocated amount that you know you should be spending on your weekly food shops. That way you know the amount that you should be fitting in. Now, of course, quick plug here, the Study Wealth spreadsheet will be incredibly helpful for this as it allocates that portion on what you should be spending on your food and toiletry shop automatically in the auto-populate feature for you. Food shop tip number 2 is to plan your meals. By knowing what you're going to eat, you can use up the current ingredients in your home, but also, more importantly, stick to the list. You've gained control in tip number 1, and now you're going to stick to it by planning those meals. Tip number 3, and it's quite an entertaining one, is to make sure that you don't shop whilst hungry. Hungry shopping can be the real big faux pas. You end up just picking up everything that you fancy there and then. You go way over budget and then you get a little bit of buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse is that feeling of thinking, what the hell have I just bought? Because I really didn't need it, but I was absolutely starving. So make sure you have yourself a nice wholesome planned meal before you go to the supermarket. Tip number 4 is if you're shopping at the same supermarket regularly, then you sign up to their loyalty schemes. As you know from the previous video here, you know this is something that I do for car fuel, but also my food shop with the Tesco Club card. Still on tip number 4, and we're looking at toiletries as well as our food shop. So loyalty schemes for your club card can also be used for boots, such as an Advantage card. Now, it still remains the case that boots cost per item when compared to supermarkets is about 15% more, but it's not always the case that the item you want for your toiletries is in the supermarket. The great thing about the Advantage card, especially if you have the app, is that you get tailored, personalised deals that you can use on that regular spend that you have to do because the toiletries aren't in the supermarket. This all adds up and it helps you save more money, especially when the points start to accumulate. Again, it's about 1p per point, and importantly, for my community of people, students get 10% off. You assign the card with your NUS or your uni days, I believe, and you can get 10% off every time you shop in Boots. This is a great way to save where you can't get your toiletries from the supermarket. Tip number 5, and this is what I like to call don't buy brands. Now, the money saving expert community call this downshifting, and it can save you about £1,300 a year. It's something that I implemented through university and still use today. Let's consider the 4 categories within a supermarket costing strategy. You have your premium, you have your branded, you have your own brand, and you have your value. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to go straight from premium all the way to value. It is probably the case that my community and the millennial community are probably at the sort of branded and own brand level. Now, through university, I went from branded to value, shopping in the likes of ALTH or Iceland, and it's a great way to save money. Like I said, it can save you around £1,300 a year. What I would just do to start with though, is if you have a few items, and sorry Heinz, I don't mean to pick you out here, but Heinz ketchup or Heinz beans, then you buy the next level down. For one shop, you buy them both, you do a taste test just to see, blind of course, don't let your subconscious bias tease you into thinking that the Heinz tastes better. If you can deal with the taste of the cheaper tomato ketchup or cheaper beans, then it will save you money in the long run. Did you know that on average we throw away £700 worth of food a year because it's gone off? This leads to tip number 6, and it's what I like to call use your freezer. Frozen food is 30% cheaper than fresh food. But not only that, you can freeze food that is fresh. You don't have to just buy the cheaper frozen food. But when you're buying frozen food or you're buying fresh food that you're going to freeze, so many Fs, you can get the economies of scale of buying in bulk and getting it cheaper per, let's just say, gram, or cheaper per kilo, whichever your bulk, your level you're buying. This is also good when you want to make extra portions. You freeze it, put it in the freezer, and you can get it out and eat it when you need that portion. Now, the best tip, so this is something that I think the millennial generation can get better at, and that is utilizing our freezer. However, what was a massive game changer for me was items like bread. Bread goes off all the time. If you freeze it, take a slice from when you want it, defrost it, and then eat it. You can either defrost it in the microwave, in the toaster, however you want to do it. It's a great way to save on buying too much bread that keeps going off, and you're buying more and more, and you're only using half a loaf each time. That's a great way to save. The best tip that I've ever been told on when I've used in my freezer more is to make a list on the outside of the freezer and what is actually in it. We millennials love an app. On average, we spend around 2 hours and 15 minutes on apps each day, and we have about 60 to 90 on our phones. Supercook. Supercook is a great app where you can put in ingredients that you need to either use up or get rid of, them all in to the app, and it gives you suggested recipes that you can make from those items. Tip number 7, don't be a waster. Use Supercook. Yes, there are other apps out there. I'm just using an example that I use. I find it really useful. Before we move on to tip number 8, we're looking at the final 3 tips now, 8, 9, and 10. And of course, I've got them all aimed at our work lunches. I want to save us £2,000 a year on our work lunches. If you are getting value from this video, please press the like button. Please subscribe to the channel for regular videos on personal finance, financial education, and entrepreneurship. For this How to Save series, we're still to look at our more social spend, our wants category, and then of course what we're actually going to do with our savings once we've saved all this money. Tip number 8, and that's to invest in good Tupperware. What a great topic of conversation. Tupperware has been around since 1948, and it's a great way to get portion control, to make sure that you are keeping your food fresher by putting it in Tupperware, freezing it, or putting it in the fridge, and of course, carrying it to work. There's nothing more exciting than shopping for good Tupperware. Look on places such as Amazon, Groupon, your supermarkets. I know Asda are quite good at selling Tupperware. So make sure that you look at those places for your best value. Number 9, for your work lunches, and we touched on it there just a little bit. I'm not sure whether you've seen it, but you've probably guessed it's to utilize your dinners or cook in bulk on a Sunday. Now I actually I find myself mixing between the two depending on what diet I'm on at the time, but I either cook on a Sunday and I take those foods in on a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, or I utilize my dinners. I'll just cook an extra portion of dinner, I will then put it into a Tupperware pot, put it into the fridge, and I'll take it to work with me the next day. Probably found working in London that utilizing dinners means I get more variety, but also keeps me doing it. When I cook on a Sunday, I cook for 3 days the following week, maybe chicken, rice and veg. I get quite bored of it by Wednesday and I just want to break those rules and go and pay for an expensive work lunch, which we're going to touch on in our last tip number 10. So on our final tip for today, and actually tip number 9.5 is going to be to press that like button. Tip number 10 is actually about really now getting control of those work lunches, really seeing how we can save big. Now, I just want to stress the importance of saving on your work lunches. In the UK, the average work lunch costs about £7, £6.50. In London alone, an average lunch is about £15. So you can start to see how it could really add up. Around £1,600 a year is what the average UK worker spends on their lunches. But if you're in London and that lunch cost is over £15, then you really need to work on controlling it as much as possible. And have I got some great tips for you in tip number 10. So I have really changed my mindset on the way I look at my work lunches. It's really easy to get fed up of utilising dinners or bulk cooking on a Sunday. So what I've done is I've given myself 2 days a week, a Thursday and a Friday, to spend £10 accumulated, so £5 each day on my work lunch. Quickly see where I'm going to go with this. If you just do a quick bit of maths, if you are spending £10 a day on your work lunch, £50 a week, you're spending £200 a month, you're spending £2,400 a year. Now, if you're only doing £10 a week on your weekly food work lunches, then you're looking at £40 a month, you're only doing £480 a year, you're saving nearly £2,000 by allocating only £5 a day for 2 days rather than £10 a day for 5. However, most importantly is, how do you actually get a work lunch for £5? Now this is where I've got some really useful, and like I said before, 60 to 90 apps on our phone. I'm just going to add to that. We've got a few apps that we, especially in London, and apologies if you're not in London, but this can also work in the regions as well in the UK, but is to use apps. Apps have promotion deals. So Ritual, for example, does a £1 work lunch week. Every day of the week, there is a restaurant, I think it's a collection of them, doing £1 lunches. That's £1 lunch. That's cheaper than doing your own food shop and utilising your dinners. It's a great way to save on those work lunches. I also eat at more difficult times, and actually some people call it difficult. I've just got into the habit of doing it now. So K10, for example, at 3 o'clock will do half price on all of its sushi in London. So I'll often go and eat that at 3 p.m, just a late lunch on 2 or 1 day, and then I get my other lunch using Ritual. And finally, the last app is Too Good To Go. Again, similar concept to K10. You have to eat at later times because you're getting the Too Good To Go. They haven't sold it, and so you get it for a very heavily discounted price. Okay, so that last tip number 10, you're almost getting 2 for the price of 1, so I definitely think you should press the like button. But more importantly, you've got to try and summarise it. Look at it as a change of mindset. Give yourself £10 for 2 days of the week. Then do all you can to get that lunch for £10. Use the apps. Don't let your food shop eat you out of house and home. All of these tips are essential and should be used holistically to get the best results. In fact, together you can save yourself around £5,000 a year. If you invest that for 30 years, getting a real return of 5%, you're looking at a pot of £340,000. So I've just saved you, in a sense, £500,000. Don't worry, I take payments in like buttons and comments, so make sure you comment on this video. In fact, this week we're going to have a comment competition. I want to give my community a little bit more value. I want to give you more specific value on your circumstances. Now, it's important to note this is not financial advice. It's just an opportunity for you and me to have a one-on-one conversation about what your finances are currently looking like and where you want them to be. Now, if you want to have a chance of getting this 30-minute call, then please comment below. I'll be doing a random comment selection and the person who wins will have an opportunity to have a call with me. So just something a little bit different this week. I don't want to take a £500,000 payment from you for giving you those savings. I'm only joking, but I do want to give something back to you. So please press the like button, make sure to comment below, and we'll have that 30-minute conversation on your specific finances. Thanks for watching.